We're live.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our roundtable today. What does it mean to be an artist in Newark in 2020? I'm Trisha Bloom. I'm the curator of American art at the Newark Museum, and we're really excited to introduce our wonderful panel of 5 Newark artists and our guest moderator, Dexter Wimberly. Before I do that, I want to first thank the National Endowment for the Humanities for supporting this program today. And a special thanks and acknowledgement to our partners, Newark Arts and the Honk Tweet, who have worked with us in creating the virtual exhibition, which was sort of the point of origin for this today's panel, Art and Tech, Perception, Access, and Power. And if this was launched during the Newark Arts Festival in early October, but you can still go online. If you go to the Newark Arts Festival website, click on Virtual Gallery, you can enter a beautiful virtual space that simulates the Newark Museum of Art and see work by these 5 artists and a number of others. This was a juried exhibition, the first time that we did an online exhibition for the Newark Arts Festival because of our current circumstances of not being able to gather in person. Wonderful show, you should check it out. And so what evolved from that experience, which we were just kind of reviewing the various ways in which it was appreciated and celebrated, we gathered this group of 5 of the artists in the show. And I think that Dexter is going to go into more depth introducing them, but we have Clara Aden, Patricia Dahlman, Nell Painter, Danielle Scott, and Laiquan Nunayagwar, 5 extraordinary local artists with global impact to share their work and their experiences with you today. And so now it's my pleasure to introduce Dexter Wimberly. He is an independent curator and an entrepreneur who has organized exhibitions with galleries and institutions throughout the world, including the Third Line in Dubai, CAM, Contemporary Art Museum of Raleigh, North Carolina, the Museum of the African Diaspora in San Francisco, and many others. Dexter has served as a director of strategic planning at Independent Curators International in New York City. He is a senior critic at the New York Academy of Art and the founder of Hayama Artist Residency in Japan and Art World Conference. Dexter was recently listed in the Observer's Art Power 50 Changemakers Shaping the Art World in 2019. So I'm really happy to have you here today to guide our conversation and learn more about what it means to be an artist in 2020 in Newark.
Well, thank you so much for that, Trisha. Thank you to New York Museum of Art for inviting me to moderate this discussion. It's really an honor for me, primarily because I can't think of things that I enjoy more than talking to artists and getting to meet new artists and understanding what they are up to and how they see the world, because it's through my relationship with artists that I think I've gotten a better understanding of the world, and I still hope to continue to learn. So I don't want to take up too much time in the beginning because I don't think anyone's on this webinar to hear me. I think they're here to hear you fantastic artists. So what I would love to do is to give each of you literally 1 minute to just introduce yourself very briefly and just kind of tell us one thing about you that you'd like us to know. And we're going to do that like as a round robin thing. We'll start with we'll do it in this order. We'll do Nell, Patricia, Clara, Laiquan, and then Danielle.
Okay. All right. I'm Nell Painter. I am formerly the historian Nell Painter, and I work back and forth between the hand and the computer. And the piece that is shown in the current exhibition was handmade, but then massaged and brought to its current situation digitally.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm Patricia Dalman, and I am a artist that works with thread and fabric. and I have a studio at Index Art Center in Newark. And I have been making artwork about American politics the last 4 years.
Thank you.
Yeah, my real name is Elizabeth Omolara Adenugba, popularly known as Clara Aden. I'm a visual artist. I'm very passionate about drawing. I do paint also, but my strong point comes really out, really out when I pick up a pencil and I scribble something on the surface. Presently, I'm the vice president of the Female Artists Association of Nigeria. I work in oil, pastel, but my principal medium is charcoal and pencil. Realism is the main feature of my practice. I don't do much of abstract art, which is very glaring in my erudition. And I'm just super excited to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laiquan Nunayagwar. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. That name is the name I've given myself, and in a way is a thesis of my work. It's a way of understanding. Wait, can you hear me?
Yes.
You hear me? Okay, sorry about that. The way that I make work is just sort of find myself and my history. I'm a mixed blood person, the result of colonization. I'm also an immigrant and I live in the US in Newark. So I use art, I use storytelling, now using virtual reality experiences to find myself and find others like me. And I look forward to talking to all of you.
Thank you.
I am Danielle Scott. I'm from Jersey City, New Jersey, but went to school in Newark, and that's where a lot of things got started for me. I am a trained oil painter, but over the last 4 or 5 years, I've developed this love for mixed medium and assemblage art. So I'm working with a lot of different mediums at this point, from toys to spray painting to collecting found objects and using those in my work. I have a studio at Mana Contemporary in Jersey City. So I work out of there. And now I'm doing a lot of very large photo montage pieces. So the piece that was in the Newark Museum has photo montage. It also has a found object. It has bullet shells inside of the stars of the flag. And then there's photo montage of 400 lynched bodies across the flag. So the flag is called False Flag, and it's actually hung backwards because I feel like we are going backwards and not moving forward in America. So it's a part of a series called Brown in America.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So the title of today's discussion is, what it means to be an artist in Newark in 2020. And I thought a lot about that in terms of formulating questions that I'd love to ask all of you. So one of the things I want to do, because I think it's important, is to sort of take into account that there will be people who will watch this who've never been to Newark, right? So while a lot of our audience will be people who are familiar with the city, I think there's another portion of the audience that just never been there. So I'd love for, I won't leave it up to you to kind of like self-select. Now we're going to do the thing we do in school where I call on you. So Patricia, if you could tell me, like, what do you think Newark has how has it influenced you as an artist? How has the city influenced you?
I love Newark. Newark is my backbone. It's who I am. It's where I go almost every single day and spend the day and do artwork. I love the people there. I love the mayor there. I love Index Art Center there. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be there, and I'm thrilled to be part of the community. I think it's an exciting community that is growing, and I'm very pleased that it so much involved with the city itself. I'm excited to see that the mayor is interested in dealing with the artist. He himself is an artist. And we are part of building a community, making it better. And that's my thoughts on it, being there.
Is there anyone else that'd like to chime in on that and talk about how the city has really influenced them as an artist in their practice? Sure, no.
Yeah, even though I'm not in Newark right now, Newark has meant a lot to me. My husband and I moved to Newark from Princeton in 2002 because we wanted a multiracial, multi-ethnic city, and we found one, of course. But at this particular time, when police brutality is so much in the news, and for me, newly in my art, the history of Newark has been so enriching. Many people know about the Newark Uprising in 1967 and the role that police brutality played in that. So I think Newark is unique in its relationship between us as artists, its history, and the continuing tragedy of police brutality.
Mm-hmm. I watched some of the footage of the video interviews that was shared with me. I think I saw like raw footage from each of you, and I was really struck by some of the comments or things that you shared, particularly around this idea of calling a place home, and like when you know that you can claim a city. This wasn't from any one of you in particular, but it's sort of like a theme that I thought I was hearing while watching the videos. Like, for example, Danielle, you mentioned that you weren't born in Newark, right? But at some point in your life, your family found themselves in Newark, and then you grew up there and went to school there. But I think it's one of those things where in life, at some point, you claim a city and you say, like, I am from that city, even if you weren't born there.
Mhm.
And Danielle, can you share a little bit about that? Like what was it like for you to like claim Newark as your city?
My high school experience made me realize that Newark is home. And that came from the people that came into my life from being into Newark. So when I went to Arts High School, I was introduced to some of the most amazing people, and they're still in Newark. My mentor right now is Bisa Washington, and Bisa Washington has been my mentor for 26 years. So that I started under her when I was 14. The late legendary Gladys Barker Grower, wow, like I don't want to get emotional, but she was my mentor for 25 years. She passed away, she was 96 years old. And I spent from the age of 15 to 95 with her.
Wow.
You know, so it's just those experiences that you get from Newark, and just the heart, that for me was the heart of Newark. And, you know, Miss Grower happened to be the first female to open up an art gallery in Newark with Nettie Thomas and Bisa Washington and Alita Caldwell. And Alita Caldwell was the principal of Arts High School, who introduced me to Bisa Washington, Miss Grower, Ben Jones, Mansa Musa, Willie Cole, like, you know, and I normally don't tell people that I know all of these artists, because, you know, I learned about them, and I learned to be humble and go into their studios as a child, you know, as a teenager, a young emerging artist.
Right,
so that's
right.
why I say, like, Newark, if it wasn't for Newark, I don't know where I would be, because I crossed paths with so many great artists in Newark, not Jersey City, and that's where I was born. It came from Newark. Newark is that's my home. That is home for me.
That's fantastic. Laiqua, you mentioned in introducing yourself that you, amongst many things that you are, you know, obviously an artist as well, you're also an immigrant. And can you shed a little bit of like light on that, sort of like a little bit of background on your family history and how you found yourself in Newark as an artist?
Sure. So I migrated from Ecuador, South America, when I was 14 with my family. It was just like something inevitable for us. We just ended up here, right? You know, sometimes when you're in a relationship with someone, you choose to love that person, and then that love is given back to you. to me, that's what being a citizen is, or like the idea of belonging. You know, we always get into these conversations about nativism and who was born where and claiming something or having ownership over it. I'm an immigrant, so I don't belong to the place I was born in, and I don't belong to the place I live in now, right? According to those definitions. But in my heart, in my work, I belong to both. And I create my work and myself by aligning my work and myself with the city, the people, and the energy, the love that I feel and I want to nurture. So that's a little bit of what my work does, I think, on some level. And it is a reflection of me getting to that understanding. I think when I was a younger artist, a younger person, I didn't get that. I was still thinking about myself as not belonging anywhere, but that's changed. So that's how I understand Newark and that form of love.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And Clara, I believe you're in Nigeria now, right? That's correct. You're muted.
Yes.
Yeah. And what's interesting to me about that, I know that we might have a little bit of a delay there. So for those who may have chimed in on this and weren't sure like what the delay is because you're far away. So what's interesting about that, you being in Nigeria, is that I think for me this year, like many of us, I've been on Zoom and all these other platforms, like far more than I've ever would have been under normal circumstances. It's almost like now I don't even know how to talk to people on the phone anymore. But are you in Nigeria as a result of the pandemic? Did you just did you go there and you couldn't come back, or did you go there because of it? Can you tell us like why you're in Nigeria right now?
Well, actually, I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, and I grew up in Agboyi side. Is a very small village community, and my growing up as a child was a little bit not too difficult in a way, but it's like for me. I am somebody that I'm very, very emotional. You know, when it comes to you, when you are being maybe criticized, you know, because of because of your gender stature. Because in a way, I am somebody that I don't normally like to put so much pressure, you know, on myself when it comes to maybe I find myself in a situation whereby I cannot, you know, adjust to whatever situation that is going now around me. So that thing has been something that you know, that I've been able to develop even when I was a little girl. So in a way, I find myself in Nigeria, you know, due to the fact that I'm being born and raised in Nigeria. I've never been to Newark before, but in the course of the festival, you know, I feel as if I'm home, you know, with my people, because I feel as if, you know, though I'm not physically in Newark, but my interaction, you know, with the little time I've been able to interact with the artist community, you know, with people, and then getting engaged, you know, virtually, it has really impacted my life, and in a way, it has really given me, you know, it has really inspired me in a way. So I believe, even despite the fact that I'm far away from Newark City, you know, I feel as if I'm home. You know, like they said, Newark is a home to all. So in a way, I feel as if, you know, I'm there. So I look forward to the day I'm going to be there physically, you know, but presently, due to the pandemic, you know, I'm being restricted. I couldn't go for now. So, but technology, due to the advantage of technology, you know, we have been able to make this happen. So, and I'm so happy that, you know, through this festival, it has really impacted me a lot, and I really hope to take it further in my, art practice.
Thank you so much. Patricia, you mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, I think you mentioned the P word when you were introducing yourself, and that is politics. And I think so much of our lives have been dominated by politics in recent years. I mean, you could say that all the time, but I think we might all agree that the past 4 years have been like quite a doozy. What does politics like mean in the context of your work? Like, how do you incorporate the political environment or what's going on politically into your practice as an artist?
Well, much of the time that I'm making art, I'm listening to the radio and I'm listening to the news, and I'm kind of an NPR junkie. So I tune in and out of listening to the news. But it's kind of hard to talk about this because I feel like we've been going through hell for over 4 years. But when Trump was first running over 4 years ago, I was so shocked about what was being said and what he said that I had to make artwork about it. And I didn't feel like I had a choice. So I have been doing that for the last 4 years. Now, I do take breaks, trying to do more positive things that have been happening politically as well, like when all the women representatives won a couple years ago, and it was made up of a lot of women of color. It was a very exciting time for me. So I do try to be positive as well. I have also done a couple of public artworks with a group called Windows of Understanding, We See Through Hate. And I felt like they were positive things that I had to do because so much negativity has been coming out with the Trump administration. I'm seeing now that we're seeing more of the light, and I'm happy to hear that. And I have to say that hearing Trump talk about, not sure, he wasn't sure who the next administration was a good sign that he's facing it, that he's gonna be getting out of there. But basically, that's what I'm thinking about. And my artwork has always been what I'm thinking about and what's important to me. And that's what I've been thinking about.
Thank you. Danielle, in your interview video, you talked about travel, right? And how it was sort of a transformative experience for you, a fairly recent trip to Cuba. And I think that what I've observed during this time that we've all been going through with this pandemic is that in some regards, it's been the political environment that's been pulling us apart. But I feel like art and the artists themselves have sort of been this glue that have been trying to sort of hold people together. And so, as I mentioned earlier on, it's always exciting to me to talk to artists because it reminds me of what at least what I think is important. But Danielle, in terms of the influences of other places, could you talk a little bit about how you discovered things about yourself as an artist through travel?
So, like I said, I met Ben Jones when I was 15. And over the last 3 years, I've had conversations with Ben. And I am Afro-Cuban. My grandpa is Cuban, Afro-Cuban. My grandma is Polish and my Polish Jewish. So my grandmother was an Orthodox Jew who met my grandpa in Brooklyn, and my grandpa is an Afro-Cuban. So Ben said to me, how could you be Afro-Cuban and you haven't been home? So I went home. And in me going home to Cuba, I started seeing myself. And that was my first 2 weeks of my residency program at Mana Contemporary. And I already had the idea of what I was going to do within my residency. When I went to Cuba, my life changed. I went during the Havana Biennial as well, and that was why Ben tried to get me there. And in the Havana Biennial, you see over 1 million artists, and they're all of Afro-Cuban descent.
Wow.
And I was going into the museums, I was staying on foot, I was going to the studios, the open studios, and I just started seeing myself. And I was like, what's going on here? And he said to me, I told you. And what I learned from my experience of going home is Afro-Cuban artists or a Cuban artist, they create with no boundaries. I was creating these beautiful oil paintings, but I already had it in my head that I wanted to stop doing those things. I wanted to create what was living within me. And that experience just changed my life. When I came back from Cuba, and within my residency, 4 months, I created 26 pieces. And that series was called Heavy and Loaded. And I had my first solo exhibition at Index Gallery. And a lot of people were able to see the influences of Cuba. They were able to see my Jewish influences, and they were also able to see influences of Santeria. Because as I was in Cuba, I kept feeling, so the energy in Cuba, you feel spirits and you feel your ancestors very heavy. I've never felt that before, and I've traveled before, but I kept feeling like someone was following me or with me the whole time. And when I came back, those images that I was seeing started becoming a part of my work. And I spoke to my mother about it, and my mom said, I'm happy you went home. You discovered yourself, and I bet your grandparents or great grandparents were with you the whole time, guiding you through that experience. So yes, Cuba, I want to go back home. I want to spend a lot of time there because, you know, just the feeling there, and it's so warm, it's so inviting. It taught me that I don't need a lot to survive either. I came back saying, Americans are spoiled. We don't need a lot. Like,
well, you're right about that. You're right about that.
Yeah.
And I'm pronouncing your name correctly, yes? I believe you said in one of the clips that I watched that you changed your name as a means of decolonizing yourself, or part of the process of decolonizing yourself. And I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. Yeah, it was part of that process. Shout out to Cuba. That's a place where you can definitely follow the thread of decolonization. But it was sort of like, you know, at the same time, giving birth to myself, or imagining myself, reimagining myself with my own imagination. It was giving myself a new name. Like, my family name is Lenny Correa. Lenny is like a British nickname. Correa means belt in Spanish. And in none of that identity was there, and never any space for my indigenous side. So I looked up a dictionary and came up with this new name. And it's fitting that I have no idea what I'm doing, right? So I'm just looking at a dictionary. I started learning the language after. So my name is like gibberish, but it means something. But it's the same thing as like the term Latinx, right? Like that was invented by the Reagan administration. And we've created like a glue, like a group of people that are defined by that. So names, definitions have power as much as we give them power. So that's why I changed my name. That's why I use this name to sort of work through it and create this imaginary or factual reality that I want to see.
Well, I think in many ways it becomes real when you claim it, right? It's like, you know, I laugh when you said, you know, my name is gibberish, because in many ways all names are in some regards, right? Like and if not to the person speaking it, it may be to the person that's hearing it. But I think when you bring your own power into a name or into something, that's when it kind of takes on of its own, because a century from now, there may be, you know, 1,000 people with the name that you've just created. Because of your legacy, right? You brought it into the world. A question came in that I'd love to kind of you know, pose to you guys as a group. Someone said, could you talk a little bit about the galleries and resources in Newark that are available to artists? So if any of you've had access to a resource that is a Newark-based resource, like obviously the Newark Museum of Art is a resource in Newark, but there are many others. Is anyone willing to chime in and kind of share that for the listeners?
Sure, I will. I'll chime in. Index Art Center. I would, if you're interested in seeing shows or trying to get your work shown or having a one-person show, I would check out Index Art Center. I would also look at Gallery of Pharaoh. They're fabulous. And we haven't talked about them, but they too are a huge part of Newark, of the Newark art scene. and they're wonderful, and they're open to lots of cool ideas. And those are a couple places. A third place, which other people can talk more about, is Project for Empty Space. They're doing amazing shows and doing wonderful projects. That's another gallery that one can check out when the pandemic's over, you know, when they've opened up. And sometimes some of them have been able to open up a little bit. But those are three places I really think people should check out.
That's great. And anyone else?
I would suggest the Newark Artist Database, newarkartists.org. They're online. Also Newark First Friday. I'm gonna suggest like a lot of Instagram things because that's what happens now. But those are good spots.
And what would you say to an artist that's considering coming to Newark to sort of make it the place that they create their work in terms of access to studios? I mean, obviously with the pandemic, everything almost everything you say, you have to put a little like asterisk next to it to say, well, if it were not for the pandemic. But that aside, I mean, what kind of guidance would you give to an artist that wants to make Newark home, and sort of like, what do you think they should take into consideration? I mean, Newark, like many cities, has different sections and places that are more artist centric than others. Give me a sense of like the lay of the land a little bit.
As far as studio spaces, it would be what Pat just said. Index offers studio spaces for artists. Gallery of Farrell does, and then Project Empty Spaces. There, you know, each gallery has artist studios. So those would be like the number one, I would think. I don't know if I'm missing anyone, but those are the three spaces that do take in artists and help provide studio spaces for them, and networking with other artists.
Well, sorry, Nell, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I want to say something here. I'm thinking about when I finished Rhode Island School of Design graduate program about 10 years ago, and my fellow painters were all going to Brooklyn to be internationally acclaimed artists, and I came home to Newark. But I'm imagining if artists coming out of graduate school think about Newark, they might be tempted by something I don't want them to be tempted to by, and that is thinking, oh, I'm moving into virgin territory. Oh, I'm bringing great art to this little New Jersey town. I would like people thinking about coming here to keep respect in their minds.
No, that's a very important point. And I think that to a large extent, I've seen that happen in a lot of cities that have sort of in recent years started to get a lot of press, right, for like their activity. Now, there have been people making work there for a better part of the century, right? But all of a sudden, all of the media starts to pay attention to it. You start getting written up in the newspapers and the magazines, and then all of a sudden, much like gentrification, even other artists from other cities say, aha, that's the place. It's like you could say that even about like places like Woodstock and Hudson, New York, and other parts of upstate New York, where you have this like influx of artists that coming in and are like, oh, I'm going to put Hudson on the map. It was on the map already. Definitely, yeah, that's a good perspective. Now I'm glad that you shared that. So our current situation with this pandemic has forced a lot of us to spend more time at home and in our studios than ever before. And so I think that, you know, if you have small children who have to teach them school at home, it's a nightmare. But maybe for an artist, it could be a dream. If you have like no excuse where you're just going to be in your space alone making work. I suppose for some that might be a dream. But could each of you tell me something that you've been working on in the past few months that you're excited about artistically that you may not have touched on already? And Clara, why don't we start with you? Like, what's going on in your studio right now? Like, what are you working on?
Yeah, presently I'm one of the grant beneficiary of African Culture Fund, and the theme of my project is Arts in Time of Crisis. So for the past 2 weeks now, I've been researching and trying to really get into the project profile. So basically what I wanted to do is I want to relate with people to find out how they've been coping during this pandemic and the mental state of people, especially during this lockdown, during the lockdown period, and also after the lockdown was restricted. And then something now came to my mind that even while people were being, you know, during the era of the social distancing, I noticed that, a lot of people will be having this mental illness. They might not even know they have it because at the end of the day, if you are the type that you don't like people to box you in, and your freedom is being restricted, psychologically, it will affect you. So in a way, I want to use my project, to be able to address the issue of the mental state of people, during the pandemic, after the pandemic, and sure, how is it going to look like? Because I believe that if right now we don't really address this issue, it's might be too it can create something too enormous for somebody to handle. So that even at the end of the day, when you take time to talk to people, because I believe that I'm somebody that I like to use my art to address issues, to impact people's life, and also when you see my art, I want a situation whereby you'll be able to relate well with it, and it should be able to strike a chord, strike an emotion in you. So I want to use that project to be able to address the issue of mental illness, then how people in such state can cope, and how one can support people in such state, because I believe at that moment they really need so much love, so much encouragement, so that they'll be able to come out of it.
Right.
So, and then at the end of the project, I intend to create 15 works, in different series, relating to this topic, and also to engage people globally, because it's going to be an online project. So to engage people globally, to so that I'll be able to keep on going with the project. So hopefully the end of the project is in December. I'm going to wrap it up in December, because it's a 3-month project. So, but presently I'm into my researching stage. So by next week, I will start my creating process. So that is what I'm working on presently now.
Thank you for sharing that. So we're down to the final, let's call it 7 minutes or so. So we each have a minute or so to also chime in on that. Like, what are you working on? What are you excited about? We'll start with you, Danielle, and then we'll go to Layqa, then Patricia, and we'll end with Nell.
I'm currently working on a series called Brown in America. And it was inspired by my son. We currently live in Plainfield, New Jersey, and my son has had a run-in with just going into Scotch Plains and walking into a 7-Eleven, and he was followed. And he was followed by cops, and he pulled out his ID. He said he was going at that time to a Catholic school. They didn't believe him. My son is 6 foot. The image behind is actually him. So what I've done is started the series with 35 members of my family, male, from ages 60 to my youngest son of color, who was 4. And my children and family members are being photographed holding signs. And instead of everyone seeing children of color as targets, they will actually be reading and seeing who they are and what they represent. I started with my son, so the sign behind me says human. Then you have one that says musician. He plays 4 different instruments. My son is bilingual. He speaks 4 different languages. My son is an AP honor student. My son is in Lemoyne for aerospace engineering. There's so many things that I can say about my son, and I don't want my son to be just viewed as this target walking around. I am a mom of 2 boys of color. My youngest is 4, and I photographed my baby as well, holding the sign saying he's human, he's a son, he's my son, he's a grandson, he's a brother, he's a nephew, he's a cousin. So this series, I'm starting with my family first. And then I'm actually thinking to take it to the streets. And as a teacher of 20 years, I work in a high school. I want to film and photograph my students holding these signs. And I'm hoping this series is actually going to be viewed at Kean University. So the images are being photo montaged onto black and white flags. And then there'll be some gold, highlights on them. So Kean will have it first. And it will just be of my son, Jacob David. And then as it travels, it will involve all of my family members.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Laiquan, you're up.
Hi again. Okay, so start of the pandemic, I decided to learn 3D graphics and how to make a virtual reality experience. I was already working on that, but I dived right in. I'm working on some projects now that I can't talk about yet, which is wonderful. I've been doing all this sort of project management, lots of really rewarding experiences. I have a Four Corners public art mural project coming up. I'm working with the Invisible group in Newark, and I'm very excited to make that happen. But basically, all of this means that I spend a lot of time outside of the studio with a practice where I can actually use my hands and paint and just wonder, which is something that I've neglected a little bit. I think it's super worth it, and what I'm doing is wonderful, but I kind of want to get back to that place of wonder and risk. When I'm making public art, there's a lot more that goes into that. It's not just for myself. I love having being that conduit, but I also think we need more of ourselves out there, like our personal selves. So I'm working towards that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Patricia.
Okay, what I've been working on, and I've been working on that's different for me, there is a project out there called Arc of the Viral Universe, and it's organized by a woman named Carla Ray Johnson. And we are asked to spend a year working in a sketchbook and filling the sketchbook with drawings. So this is new for me to do something. Usually I work huge, so this is pretty small. And what I've been doing is taking photographs of all over my home, outside, at the grocery store, on the bus, on my way to Newark, in Newark, at demonstrations, and taking those photographs and making drawings from them. So this is a year project. So I've been working on that. And the other thing is, it is a big deal for me to stop working on Trump. So, and I'm really, really excited about it. I mean, right now, yeah, me too. Right now I'm working on him and Pence and Ryan and Gone, with big Gone on top of them. And I guess I'm so looking forward to a new future and a better place for our country. So that's where I am right now.
Thank you so much. And Nell.
I'm actually working on panels in a small sketchbook. I have been working small since the end of last year because I've been moving around so much, from McDowell last year to Italy in the spring and then up here. So I work sketchbook size. Unlike Patricia, I've been working, well, she's working small now too, but I am. And it's actually inspired by tragedies in the Holocaust, about the murder of people in the Holocaust. I think the question of murder has been very much on my mind since June, but this particular piece situates it in Nazi-occupied Poland.
Well, thank you so much to all of you. This has been a fantastic conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to turn it over to Trisha Bloom from Newark Museum of Art to close us out today. And this has been wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you.
We didn't have enough time and I wasted a few seconds. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you all so much for participating. And for anybody who joined late, these 5 artists are part of the virtual group exhibition, Art and Tech, which you can find online at newarkarts.org. And thank you, Dexter. Thank you guys so much. Hope to see you all soon.
Everyone have a great evening.
Bye-bye. Thank you.